Ready?
Welcome to Exposition. This time we have something a little different. Instead of painting and all that kind of stuff, we're burning metal.
Yeah.
A guy that owns a forge and does shoeing of horses and other metalworking is here. So stay tuned. Glad you could stick with us. We've got people messing about.
Sorry.
All right.
Whoopsie-daisies.
Yeah. So what's going on?
Well, are we allowed to say that coming up we have around this time of year or any time of year, you can look forward to a St. Patrick's Day cultural parade in Gallipolis, Ohio, downtown. And it'll be usually any year that you want to come. It's the closest Saturday to St. Patrick's Day. And
the kilts will be a-flying.
The kilts and all the...
hoping the wind won't blow too hard.
That's right. Oh, no. This is a rated G family show.
The bits and pieces might get a little chilly.
Oh, did you say that? Holy cow. Yes, and we're celebrating all of our cultures. So not just Irish. We're going to be Scottish and Indian and Native Indians and
stuff in the park.
Taiwan and Thailand. Chinese and nothing in the park. If you come anytime around the time of the show, then there's not anything in the park this year.
Okay. All right. Well, today's guest is Marc Setzer.
Woohoo!
And he does ferrying.
Farrier work. Yeah.
Farrier work.
Yeah.
Ferrying. I guess.
Sure.
Make your way across a river.
Right.
Ferryman.
Yes, that is not my job. And what's funny about that is a couple years ago for my birthday, my grandma got me these wonderful business cards, but and they were so nice and very professional looking. But down at the bottom where it said job title, it was Farrier, Ferrier. And I couldn't give them out because it's just
because it's F.A.
F.A. So I'm like, I didn't want to tell people that I actually had a boat and I was taking them across the river. So
well, you do kind of look like a captain with that hat on, you know.
Across the river Styx.
Right.
That's right, with the penny in your shoe. Yeah. No on your eyeballs. No on your eyelids.
Anyway. How about telling us about how you got into this line of work?
When I was a kid, my grandfather did some part-time horseshoeing work, and I kind of tagged along with him and learned the ropes and got to kind of figuring out what was going on with that. When I graduated high school, I tried to get in at a major racehorse barn up around where I grew up in Northwest Ohio. And they told me, get out of here, kid. You don't have a degree. You don't have
Do you
enough.
have to have a degree or a certification?
It's definitely recommended through like the American Farriers Association and different organizations like that you do have a certification in it.
Is that where you would go and like prove your skills?
They do have a
testing.
Well, a little bit of both. They have an actual like class where you have to prove that they give you a horse to work on. You have to make a certain type of shoe. You need to correct this problem or just shoe this horse, and they give you different certifications throughout that. I read about Hocking College and came down this way and completed the program down here. And
so Hocking has a program?
I'm not sure now. As far as I know, now they do still have a program. When I came through, they had one of the better programs in the United States. But that was
That's
13,
awesome.
14 years ago, so I'm not real sure what the status is now. But I had some absolutely amazing instructors that opened my eyes to, for one, I was shoeing like an old farm boy. Nothing wrong with that. It's just not as scientific as what it could have been. And I was
Now,
working.
I made a joke earlier when we were talking that, you know, is there orthotics for, you know, shoes for horses?
Very
And
much
yes,
so.
you said there is.
Yeah, there absolutely is. I've got shoes out in my work truck right now that are aircraft aluminum, plastic, rubberized material, steel with a rubberized outside coating, different shapes, different sizes, different widths. And if it's something that I don't have a ready-made shoe for, I can custom make it to fit the job. So really it is, I'm a hoof podiatrist. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a vet. I can help the animal
Does the vet
walk
give
comfortable.
you the idea of what to do for it?
Yes, yeah. A good working team is owner, trainer, farrier, and vet. We're all equal parts on this one. I see the horse every 4 to 8 weeks. The owner sees it every day. So if the horse is walking funny, he's got to tell me about it. If there's something there that is structurally wrong or medically wrong, I need to get in contact with a vet, and I need to work really closely with the vet because I am not a vet. I know the foot, that's about it. I know how to treat the leg and the shoulder and the movement, but the actual medical problems in the foot, you know, torn tendons or broken blood vessels or something like that, that's out of my realm.
Because, yeah, initially I always thought, like, well, there's a horseshoe. It's going to fit the horse. Bang it on there, you're done.
That's what I thought too
Not
before I came
quite.
to school for it. Yeah, there's hundreds of blood vessels within the hoof wall, and you got some experience with horses. You notice that in the wintertime their feet don't seem to grow as much, and a lot of times in the wintertime I don't have much work to do. But the reasoning behind that is the blood vessels around the lower part of the hoof actually constrict when the weather's colder. Less blood flow means less growth. So there's a lot to it that
Do you
just an
have
old farm
to-
boy didn't know.
Right. I think you said 4 to 6 weeks or
Yeah, somewhere in the summertime I go 4 to 6 weeks. In the late fall, early spring, in that half of the year, it's 6 to 8, sometimes 10, depending on breed, conditions, what they're getting used for. So,
how much they work.
right.
If they're out in the field all winter, does that mean they need shoes or not?
I don't usually recommend it. When it gets really swampy and muddy, like Ohio tends to be, I recommend pulling the shoes and giving the hoof a break. If you're not doing a lot of riding or showing in the winter, that gives the hoof a chance to grow down and the nail holes to fill in or at least be trimmed away. That way there's not a perforation or a weak spot around the hoof wall.
You ever get a hold of one of those ones that I've seen on the internet where they've grown way out?
Oh yeah, I've actually had a couple just absolutely horrible cases, and I think we've got some photos of one that I worked on. What's going on in that is in the hoof wall and the P1 or coffin bone within the side of the hoof wall start to either get separated. That bone will either start to sink or it will start to rotate within the hoof wall and capsule, and that causes all the growth to grow up funny. Starts looking like Keebler elf shoes.
Yeah.
That's a sign of a medical issue within the hoof wall,
Okay,
within
we've
the whole
got
body.
pictures. There's the X-ray, and
Yeah,
it should be the first bunch. Of
Yeah,
pictures.
in this picture, it's seeing the outside of the hoof wall structure, and it's the first thing that kind of tipped our owners off. When that bone starts to rotate and drop, it makes things like what you see in the picture there really, really prone. That's an abscess. Because there's less sole for the horse to walk on, they're more prone to bruising and getting infections in that foot. And in that particular picture, we had to drain an abscess.
Wasn't there?
Yeah.
Didn't I have an X-ray?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
there it
one.
is.
That just shows what I was talking about. How the
That bone in the center has dropped, I guess?
Yeah, it's actually started to rotate. If you look at the measurements, they're talking about the degrees of the hoof wall versus the degree of the coffin bone, or that P1, that first phalanx.
Right.
And the horse's leg and limb all the way down into the hoof is basically the same bone structure that's in our index finger. What you're looking at in that is the rotation of the P1 within the hoof wall capsule. It's very, very painful.
So this horse was limping around?
This horse was having a lot of trouble walking.
On one leg?
No, on both the front feet.
Oh. I figure if it was, they would come in more than one.
What they believe is going on in a foundered horse is some sort of enzyme has been released within the body. And what we're seeing is just the results of that problem, but it's really a full body problem. With that horse, we had to trim it back to a balance point and get the hoof balanced so he could take a decent step. And then we put an aluminum egg bar shoe on it.
We've got a picture of that, the shoeing.
Yeah, that's me putting the shoe on using my hoof stand and some different things. That horse was so sensitive on its sole that I actually had to screw the shoes on instead of the typical nailing process. A screw.
Right there you can see.
Yeah, you can see the 4 screws that I put in, and the green and blue within the shoe is pour-in pad material.
Is that like a urethane? Or
yeah, it's exactly what it is. The green stuff in the front is actually a silicone, and I was using that as a gap holder. I actually pulled that silicone out later, but the blue stuff in the back, near my wrist, that's a polyurethane, and it comes in about 5 or 6 different hardnesses depending on what you want to use it for.
Right.
And I'm protecting as much of the sole as I can and keeping the pressure away from where that bone is actually putting pressure on the sole. And then
so you probably had to treat with antibiotics and everything.
Did, yeah. It was a long process, but on my Facebook page, somewhere on my case studies, you can actually see a video of the horse when we were done after about 6 months worth of work.
Wow.
She was running and trotting and chasing a dog in her field, and she went from not being able to walk to being able to do that. And that's one of the things I love about my job. Is
well, in horses, that's almost saving a life.
Just
when
about.
They get lame.
Yep.
Everybody thinks, boom.
Right. Even as far back as maybe 80 years ago, tops, these animals were tools. They were the same as your truck or your tractor or your car. It was a mode of transportation, and I'm sure some people treated them as close members of the family. But nowadays, that's a pet. We don't require the use of horses. We've got them because we enjoy them, and that going from a tool to a part of your family makes my job more important, I guess, because now we're not just trying to get this thing back on the road so you can go get your groceries or go to work. We're trying to make your friend as comfortable as possible and as moving as naturally as possible so you can keep that friend around for longer.
So do you work with Amish?
I do. I work with some Amish because I'm a little easier to get a hold of than riding your horse down to your neighbor's place to get his attention, and because I have a wider access to different clinics and different videos online and stuff like that. Different educational opportunities. I know. I've learned a little bit more than what they have ready access to, and so when there's a problem, I can go out and work with the Amish too. They have some tricks that I would love to learn, and it's kind of a mutual experience. Not that I'm expecting any Amish to watch this episode, but yeah, they're really knowledgeable on things that. The mechanics of the horse, the different uses of a horse, what traction works best for them, things like that. So I love working with the Amish because, man, I learn as much as they do, easily.
Well, I know that Mark has personally saved our donkey, and our vet even entrusted our donkey to Mark to make sure that she lived.
That wasn't just me, though. I gave you homework to do, and she wouldn't have progressed nearly as well had you not done all the legwork and treated the issue. Because like I said before, I see your animals every maybe 4 to 8 weeks, but you get to see them every day. So
Yeah, but you know, with the donkey, I couldn't do my homework every single day exactly the way you prescribed. But it's, you save lives. You save lives, and we wouldn't have our Maggie, you know, walking
that would be
around.
a tragedy, because
Yes.
she is awesome.
Yeah, she's the pill. But so you save lives, as well as, you know, keeping the animal comfortable, and, you know, making sure their gait is healthy, and, you know, they can, if they have bad feet, then there could be back problems and hip problems and joint problems, and, you know, maybe, and then they wouldn't eat, and there's like the holistic.
There's a lot to it.
Yes.
There's a lot to it. The American Farriers Association has a motto, no hoof, no horse. And it's probably the most accurate motto I've ever seen, because I really, if your horse can't walk, he can't do anything else. So.
Yes. Exactly. Thank you for what
Okay.
you do.
So this is where you got
sorry.
started.
Okay.
Right. This is how we met. Yeah.
So the next thing, were you making knives?
I was doing a little bit of knife making. I was doing a little bit of blacksmithing. Yeah, that's a karambit that I actually made that at the Bob Evans Farm Fest. Somebody came by and asked if I could make one, and I just went ahead and did.
Fest. Wow.
Yep. The handle on that is a South American Granadillo, which I use a lot on my survival knives, because Granadillo is really dense, really hard, really solid, and antimicrobial. So if you were to lose this knife in the woods and found it a year later, the handle would look pretty good. The blade would be rusted and pockmarked and fall apart, but
That's
no, I really like
beautiful.
the Granadillo.
That's really
So
beautiful.
why would somebody get a forged knife from you rather than go to Walmart and pick one out of the case?
Well, for one, nothing against the Walmart knives. It's not nice to talk about your competitors, but we're in a different.
Well, there's a difference.
There's a big difference.
Artisans.
Not just that.
Not just that. There's down to a molecular structure. There's difference, and I hope I don't bore your viewers too much, but the knives at Walmart are typically made out of a stainless steel. They'll last a while. Yeah, they're stamped. They're machined. They're not handmade. It looks exactly like the next one in the package or in the row, and they're not bad knives. They will cut. They will do what you.
We're including Gerbers and all the big names.
Yeah, they're good blades, but they're not as good as they could be. A handmade knife, every time I smack a piece of steel with a hammer, it compresses the molecular structure within the blade, making the blade harder, making the edge retention better. And I can take incredible materials and throw them in my forge and make some amazing decorative knives for any occasion. You can custom make them. It's not just that cookie cutter shape that say a Gerber or any Walmart style knife will
Your
make.
buck knife or whatever.
Yeah, your buck knives. And I carried a buck for the longest time. Every farmer understands that you need to have a pocket knife on you. But like for instance, I don't carry a regular pocket knife anymore. I carry one that I made. This is just one. It's a surgical steel and just a surgical stainless and African ebony for the handle.
You made that.
I did. This blade style is called a peasant knife. And what I love the most about it is when I'm out in the woods or working my fence line trying to fix things, and I got my gloves on, I can still get that blade out.
Well, you don't need your thumb nailed together.
Exactly. So it's
it's
a fun little knife, and because of the African ebony and because of the steel of the blade, it's probably a $300 pocket knife.
Wow.
And it breaks my heart every day putting it in my pocket because I know one day I'm going to lose it or I'm going to break it.
Oh yeah.
And it's the only one I've successfully made, and it was one that I took the pattern from. A friend of mine had made me one, actually a former instructor of mine, and I love the design, and I've only been able to reproduce the one, and it goes in my pocket every day, and it comes out of my pocket and goes next to my wallet every night. And it's so much better than any pocket knife, like store-bought pocket knife I've ever had, because I heat treated it, I tempered it, I know exactly what kind of steel it is, I know how much abuse it will take, because I know the steel. All my knives have my lifetime guarantee. As long as I'm alive, if you break that knife, all I ask is you tell me how you did it, because I want to know, and I'll either fix it for you or make another one. Yeah, that's a custom order that we did. A friend of mine.
That don't look like a hunting knife.
No, it was all fantasy. It was all, yeah. You picked one of the least practical blades that I've ever made, but that was definitely one of those that I thought I could make it, so I did.
Just a skein dune?
It is. It's skein dune, Scottish black dagger. The internal wood is a local. It's hedge apple, Osage orange. The outer are rosewood, and I combined the two just to add a little different look to it. That's high carbon steel. I purposely left it a little rough because it's a Scottish Highlanders knife, and it's going to be used.
Does it have a sheath or anything with it?
Nope. Something. I probably could have made a sheath for it, but I just like the look. I'm a woodworker and a metal worker first, and not a leather worker very well.
What do you call this?
That is my favorite knife design I've come up with. It's just a little skinner. It's really no more than, I think overall it might be 5 inches tops. A nice wide blade. That one was a custom order for a friend of mine. He wanted me to use the deer shed that him and his dad found, and I love that blade. I actually carry one almost similar to it. This blade is one I made for the Albany Independent Fair. They did a raffle. Again, that's the Granadillo on the handle and high carbon steel on the blade. And that, I would call that a camp chopper.
Okay. It kind of looks like a kitchen knife to me.
Just about, yeah. It's actually really stout and really solid. And before I donated it, I actually took it out and cleaned my fence row with it. Just chopping away, testing it, abusing the knives just to see what they will take before I guarantee them. That's another ski and do that they've gotten to be pretty popular ever since the first one I made. That is rosewood, and that one's one of my absolute favorite. Just little hawkbill skinning knives. That's African ebony on the handle. I left that matte polish to it, and it's one of my more popular blades to sell.
Now, just looking at these knives, you went to a competition. That was televised.
A couple.
Yeah, twice. Back in, I believe it was about this time, about March of 2018, I was on the History Channel's Forged in Fire for the first time.
We're so proud of you.
It was an awesome experience. I didn't win, but I had an absolute blast. The judges are 10 times cooler in person than they are on TV. Jay Nielsen is a master of the American Bladesmiths Association, and if I were to call him today and had a question about knife making, if he wasn't on set, he would answer and walk me through it.
That's great.
Dave Baker, historical weapons recreator, man knows his stuff. The host of the show, Will Willis, former Army Ranger, reclassed as Air Force Pararescue. The man knows weapons, and probably the nicest guy on the face of the planet. I was teasing him that my daughter thinks he's absolutely dreamy, and that's the whole reason she'll watch the show with me. But when I got voted off, I was getting in the car to go back to the hotel, and he met me at the car with a signed and autographed picture of him. to my daughter. He said, "Here, give this to your girl." And I brought it home, and when I came home from Connecticut where it was filmed, I think she was more happy to see the autograph than she was to see Daddy. But
I doubt that.
yeah, hopefully Will doesn't find out about that, because I'm sure he'll just milk it for all it's worth. But no, the cast and crew were absolutely incredible. And I thought, once I lost, that was it. I'd be able to go back to my day-to-day stuff. And the day before Thanksgiving, I got a call. Hey, this is so-and-so with Forged in Fire. We'd like to have you back. So they brought me back for a second episode, and I made it a little bit farther that time, but the challenge was
Is each challenge one day?
Yeah, each challenge fits into that round. And what amazed me is you hear these horror stories about different reality shows and how it's all scripted and this, that, and the other. But what amazed me about Forged in Fire is, man, what you see on the History Channel is exactly how it happens. Wow. They set you a challenge and turn you loose, and you got 3 hours to do it, and that's it. That's it.
Okay, now
that's almost
we've got to move on a little bit.
imagine.
We've got a couple minutes, and from the farrier work, you and the knife stuff, you also do some art type of things. Yeah. Are these used shoes that you?
They are.
You don't use new shoes to do these?
I do, depending on who asks. A lot of times the recycling of the old shoes, it's a good way to get rid of them.
Right.
These are just some camp hooks and different decorative things. I teach a class for the artisans shop, and we start off with an S-hook, a real basic S-hook, because in that S-hook are 3 different techniques that you learn about shoeing, or about forging. You learn how to taper, you learn how to add your decorative recurl, and you learn how to do a bend. And those are 3 steps that are important in all blacksmithing. My horseshoe, it's a bend. Some of the decorative artwork, that's a bend with recurls, and it's even a knife is just a glorified taper. You're doing the edge work and a taper. These are probably my most popular seller, my wine glass bottle holders. I always get 4 or 5 orders around Christmas time or Valentine's Day. I love doing wine racks because it gives me a chance to really flex any sort of artistic ability I've got, because
you just take some horseshoes and a bottle, and it's like, okay, how do I make this work?
Exactly,
Look how
exactly.
neat that is.
Yeah, that's some of my favorite stuff. The hearts, I actually give a lot of those hearts away.
Those are so
the Christmas trees are so much fun to do. I'm not a great welder, but I do enough that I can make something pretty.
Yeah, grinder can make a good welder out of anybody.
Anybody, a grinder and paint, right?
Yeah. All right. So, how do people find you? Find your things and all that.
Well, you'll probably see me drive by in my big white cargo van's got my name and phone number on the side, but you can check me out on Facebook, Setzer Forge.
Can you spell that?
SETZERFORGE.
Okay.
You can find me on Facebook.
This goes out farther than just here. So.
Right. Oh, well, cool. Yeah, just look me up and get a hold of me if I'm always willing to try to make something. So
in case you need a horseshoe or a knife.
Or you want to learn blacksmithing.
Or you want to learn blacksmithing.
Go to the artisan shop and sign up for a class.
Yeah, you can contact me through the artisan shop too. The Valley takes pretty good care of me. So.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on, and thank you all for watching. Hope you learned a little bit about horses and knives and different things. So
hope I didn't bore you.
Oh, no.
Never.
So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time on Exposition.